Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Today, we delve into a method of capital punishment nearly as old as time itself, with its roots originating thousands of years ago. Of course, we are talking about the cruel execution technique simply known as stoning. Stoning, also known as lapidation, is an ancient form of capital punishment that involves a group of people throwing stones and rocks at a person until they are dead. This practice has been employed in various cultures and religious traditions throughout history, often as a method of punishing perceived transgressions such as adultery, blasphemy, or apostasy. The brutality of stoning lies not only in its physical execution, but also in the psychology and societal implications that it carries. This video explores the history of stoning, its cultural and religious significance, and the reasons why it's considered one of the most brutal forms of punishment, as well as taking a look at recent cases documented on camera. The origins of stoning can be traced back to ancient civilizations, where it was used as a means of maintaining social order and religious purity. Some of the earliest recorded instances of stoning are found in the legal codes of the ancient Near East. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest deciphered writings of significant length, dates back to around 754 BCE in ancient Mesopotamia. Although stoning is not explicitly mentioned in this code, the text does prescribe death for various offences, and some scholars believe that stoning may have been one of the methods used. The practice was also prevalent among the Hittites, a civilization that existed in what now is Turkey, where stoning was prescribed for certain sexual transgressions. In the Jewish tradition, stoning is explicitly mentioned in the Torah as a punishment for a range of offences, including blasphemy, idolatry, and certain sexual sins. For example, Leviticus 20:27 states, "A man or a woman who is a medium or a necromancer shall surely be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones, their blood shall be upon them." The practice was seen as a way of purging evil from the community and upholding the covenant with God. Stoning, known as rajam in Arabic, is also mentioned in Islamic texts. While the Quran does not explicitly prescribe stoning, the hadiths, which are the sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, include references to the punishment, especially for adultery. Over time, stoning became incorporated into the Islamic legal system in various regions, though its application has greatly depended on local interpretations of Islamic law. Stoning has also been documented in other cultures, including among the ancient Greeks, where it was used for crimes like treason and murder, and also in some African societies, where it was part of customary law for punishing serious transgressions. Stoning is widely regarded as one of the most brutal forms of execution, and its cruelty can be understood from several perspectives. The method of stoning involves inflicting repeated blows with stones, leading to an agonizingly slow and painful death. The size of the stones is typically chosen to ensure that the victim doesn't die immediately, prolonging the suffering. The victim may experience broken bones, internal bleeding, and severe trauma before losing consciousness and eventually dying. The prolonged nature of death distinguishes stoning from other forms of execution, such as beheading or hanging, where death is more immediate. The psychological impact of stoning extends beyond the physical pain endured by the victim. The public nature of stoning, where a crowd of people participates in the execution, creates a spectacle of violence that instills fear and obedience in the community. The victim is often buried up to their waist or chest, leaving them defenseless and exposed to the relentless assault, heightening the sense of terror. Stoning is not just a punishment for the individual, it serves as a powerful tool of social control. By making the execution a communal act, it reinforces collective norms and values while simultaneously dehumanizing the victim. The participation of a community in the execution can lead to a sense of collective responsibility or complicity, further entrenching the social order. In many cases, stoning has been disproportionately applied to women, particularly in cases of adultery. This reflects broader patterns of gender-based violence and control, where women's bodies and sexualities are policed more rigorously than men's. The use of stoning in such cases highlights the intersection of both legal and religious power structures. The concept of stoning is also a weaponized tool of fear against women in certain regions. It's essentially a means of control. Also, when stoning takes place in the modern world, usually no legal process has actually been carried out. Instead, the punishment is dished out by small localized communities, which are fueled on mob mentality and not a real legal system, leading to many instances of miscarriages of justice. In modern times, stoning has been abolished in most countries, but it remains a legally sanctioned punishment in a few regions, particularly where conservative interpretations of Islamic law are in place. Countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia and Somalia have witnessed instances of stoning in recent decades, though the practice has faced significant opposition both domestically and internationally. Human rights organisations have condemned stoning as a form of torture and a violation of human dignity. The United Nations, along with various international treaties and conventions, advocates for the abolition of stoning and other forms of cruel, inhuman or degrading punishment. The persistence of stoning in some regions underscores the ongoing struggle between traditional legal systems and the global human rights movement. Stoning, ultimately, is a punishment with deep historical roots, embedded in the legal and religious traditions of various cultures. Its brutality lies not only in the physical pain it inflicts, but also in the psychological, social, and gendered violence it perpetrates. While stoning has largely been abandoned in the modern world, its continued existence in certain regions poses a significant challenge to the advancement of human rights. Understanding the history and brutality of stoning is essential in the global effort to eradicate this inhumane practice and to promote justice and dignity for all individuals. However, the reality is, cases of stoning are still prevalent to this day, with many such incidents taking place in the Middle East, as well as certain African countries, and even in Central America and the Caribbean, though cases in these regions are more rare. Primarily in 2024, the cases are fueled by either religious extremism or lynch mob mentality, sometimes both. Sadly, online, there are tons of videos depicting this barbaric act, possibly even hundreds. After a quick Google search, I was shocked at what I found. It's a topic in which I haven't covered too much on the channel, and for good reason. The videos are incredibly hard to watch due to the slow, cruel and drawn-out nature of the execution method. In terms of cruelty and brutality, such videos are among the worst of the disturbing content rabbit hole, and I'd advise against watching them. But nevertheless, let's detail 2 of the worst cases of stoning ever recorded on video. The first clip in question contains the torturous execution of a female suspected to be involved in witchcraft. The clip in question comes out of the African continent, though an exact country has not been mentioned. In some African communities, accusations of witchcraft are frequently used to justify violence against women, often targeting the most vulnerable, such as elderly women, widows, and those with physical or mental disabilities. These accusations are deeply rooted in cultural superstitions where misfortunes like illness, death, or poor harvests are blamed on alleged witchcraft. Women accused of being witches can face brutal consequences, including beatings, banishment, or even death. These acts of violence are not only a reflection of gender discrimination, but also as a means of control to oppress women, perpetuating cycles of fear and inequalities within these societies. The clip in question really highlights the aforementioned issues faced by women in some rural African communities. The video in question is 1 minute and 20 seconds in length, and quite frankly, it is extremely chaotic, therefore somewhat hard to explain, but it's extremely nasty to look at. The video was recorded in a rural area, possibly in a village, during the middle of day. As you play the clip, you are met with the sounds of loud chattering and chants, seemingly coming from an angry mob, and you see a lady who is laying on the ground and she has already sustained several injuries. It seems that she has taken a beating. Her face is bloody and battered and is showing signs of swelling. Initially, it's hard to even make out that she is indeed a female, as her facial swellings are that bad. You then see members of a crowd grab the poor lady by the arms and they walk her to a new location. The video then jump cuts, and you see the woman sitting down on the ground, surrounded by multiple people, who shout and chant at her. The poor woman casts a sight of utter dejection, fear, and hopelessness. She simply covers her face with her hands, hoping that her dire situation is soon over, though I'm sure she realised deep down that she wasn't making it out alive. It's hard to put into words, but seeing her sit on the ground, utterly dejected, is one of the most heartbreaking things I've seen in quite some time. Out of nowhere, someone off camera then throws a big boulder at the side of a woman's head. The boulder was roughly the same size as her skull. The rock literally bounces off her head, creating a sickening thud sound. Somehow, this doesn't kill the woman or even knock her out, though you see her sway side to side while sitting groggily due to the blow. The video jump cuts once again, and you see that the woman is still sitting on the ground. However, by this point, there are several large rocks surrounding her that have been thrown at her. She is completely covered in blood. Her facial features are even more swollen, but somehow she is still alive. At this point, she's actually holding a stick in her hand, maybe out of instinct, one last attempt to try to protect herself maybe, but she doesn't have the strength nor coordination to defend herself. You then see more rocks getting thrown at the woman, but the crowd at this point seem to be purposely avoiding hitting her in the head. Instead, they throw rocks at her torso to prolong her ordeal. The woman collapses on her side after the latest barrage of rocks. Again, she is still alive at this point. Once again, another jump cut. The poor woman is then pelted by smaller stones, before a man enters shot, carrying what looks like a large lump of concrete that is as long as the woman's torso, and he then drops it on her stomach. While the rock is crushing her stomach, still fighting for life, she instinctively tries to remove it, before another man enters shot, and he cracks the lady over the head with a white plastic chair. He hits her so hard that the sound is incredibly loud, and the chair shatters into many pieces. It causes more lacerations on the poor woman's head. By this point, the woman's face and head is pure red and completely swollen. The video jump cuts again, and it shows the woman laying on the ground with no fight left in her body, but she does appear to be still breathing. Rocks surround her prone body, and many are covered in splatters of blood. Somebody from the crowd then throws another large stone at the woman, and it literally bounces off her jaw, causing even more damage. A few more stones are thrown at the lady, before then, a bunch of debris, as well as tyres, are thrown on the woman, essentially burying her face, head and torso under a pile of trash. Once again, another jump cut, and at this point, somebody takes a flaming stick, and he lights fire to the debris pile that covers the woman, and it quickly goes up in flames, much to the delight of the crowd. It's a sick, sick sight of utter depravity. The person filming then takes note of a woman's hand that is protruding from the rubble and debris. You see her hand move in a grabbing fashion, over and over again, meaning she was still alive when she was finally set on fire. I've covered many horrific videos at this point, and I had no idea of this clip's existence up until very recently, but I can safely say that it is easily one of the worst pieces of media I've ever set my eyes upon. The feeling of complete desperation after watching this clip was palpable. Watching the video makes you want to reach into the screen and rescue the poor lady. It's horrific on every level. The video ends as the woman burns to death. The second clip in question isn't as graphic as the first, though it's just as depressing. The video is thought to be the first stoning video ever uploaded by ISIS, and needless to say, it's utterly depraved. A young woman is ruthlessly executed in the video after being accused of adultery, and to make matters worse, she is killed in front of her father. Her father, however, doesn't plead and beg for his daughter's life. Instead, he encourages and participates in her demise. The video was posted to the internet on the 21st of October 2014, and the clip was recorded in Hama in Syria. The video was recorded in a desert location during dusk. The clip itself is exactly 5 minutes long. The majority of the video is essentially an ISIS propaganda piece, as well as a long segment of a back and forth conversation with the daughter and the father. The daughter, who is begging for her father's forgiveness. The translation reads as follows. An ISIS member states, "You are the first woman in this area on whom we are implementing the punishment of stoning for adultery. We hope that this will serve as a lesson for other women. This punishment is the result of the actions that you did of your own free will. Nobody forced you to do this. Therefore, you should be satisfied with the ruling decreed by Allah and submit to Allah." He then asks the woman a question. "Are you pleased with the punishment decreed by Allah?" The woman nods her head, and the ISIS member replies, "Good." The ISIS member then turns to the father of the woman. "Is there anything you would like to say to your daughter?" The father replies, "No." The woman states to the ISIS member, "Ask him to forgive me." The father says, "No, I won't. I'm not your father anymore." The ISIS member chimes in, "Okay, you're not her father anymore, but you can still forgive her." Once again, the woman asks for forgiveness, and once again, the father simply states no. The ISIS member states, "Should we deliver to Allah anyway?" The father says, "There's a God in the heavens." The woman says once again, "Forgive me." The father replies, "You expect me to forgive you for your mistake?" "Forgive me," the woman reiterates. The father refuses. At this point, even the ISIS fighter asks the father to forgive his daughter. The father replies, "I'm sorry, but my heart won't let me." The woman says, "God will forgive me." The father replies, "Hopefully God forgives you, but I won't." The ISIS member chimes in, "The Lord is more merciful than all of us. Allah willing, you will be rewarded for forgiving her. She is going to die. Please forgive her." "My heart won't let me," the father replies. The woman, in a desperate tone of voice, "Please, father." The father replies, "Don't call me dad." The ISIS member states, "Okay, but forgive her. Tell her you do." The father says, "Fine, I forgive you." The ISIS member states, "Okay, that's good." The daughter asks her dad to hold her hand. The father says, "That I won't do." The ISIS member then addresses the young woman. "Dear sister, now that we are on the verge of implementing one of Allah's punishments, what do you want to say? What advice do you have? Say your last words before you leave this world for the next. Go ahead." The woman states, "I advise every woman," before the ISIS member interrupts, "Speak up." She states, "I advise every woman to guard her chastity as much as she guards her life." The ISIS member states, "Good." The father then interrupts, "So why didn't you?" The woman replies in defiance, "Enough with that." She goes on to state, "I advise fathers that when they marry their daughter off, they should examine as to what environment they send them." The ISIS member then states, "This is a message to all married men married to a Muslim woman who is driven to do what she did by the mistake of some men. Don't leave your woman alone beyond the period designated by the Sharia. Your wives alone for a year, 2 years, or even 3 years. What will happen with those women? Satan will toy with them as he pleases. Return to Allah, brothers, and take care of your wives." The video then takes a jump cut, and the woman is now in a freshly dug hole. Her father is in the hole with her, not to say his final goodbyes, but instead to tie her up. The ISIS member can be heard giving instructions. "God will forgive you. Go down there and tie her legs. Go down there and tie her legs. Tie her up. Put the blanket on her head. Sheik, tie her up. Say that there is no God but Allah. Say there is no God but Allah. Ask forgiveness from Allah," he says. He carries on to say, "We now begin the implementation of the first stoning punishment for adultery in the rural area of East Hama." At this point, the ISIS members pelt the young woman with stones. They bounce off her head as she is seemingly reciting a prayer as she sits in the hole while getting stoned to death. You hear the fear in her voice as she prays. It's really hard to listen to. The video at this point gets increasingly more blurry in a fade-out type transition, but you see that the men are gradually increasing the size of the stones as they pelt her with them. The father then even joins in on the murder of his daughter. He himself throws large stones at the poor girl. The last minute of the video is so blurry, you can't really see what is going on. All you hear is the thud of the stones hitting the woman. Although this video is nowhere near as graphic as the previous, it's still extremely depressing, especially given the dynamic between the father and the daughter, the victim. The fact that he would be so cruel to his own flesh and blood is pretty shocking to say the least. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. As always guys, thank you for the support, it's much appreciated. If you could check me out on Twitter, if you have any case recommendations, drop me a DM. Link to my Twitch will be in the pinned comment, all that good stuff. Other social media will also be in the pinned comment, so check those out if you can. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.